Hello and welcome to All for Women's Football. It's episode 2 of 2026, but episode 51 of Lower League Lingo. We're starting off with the WNL as we normally do. We're going to look through all 6 divisions. We're going to take a look at the Cup. We're going to take a look at the plates. And at some point, we might even have a little chat about why Instagram are so pants. Let's get to it. Yes, hello and welcome. Happy New Year to everybody watching, whether that be live or watching it back. Lovely to have you back with us and to have your company. As you can see, we've got the company, the usual 3 Musketeers. We've got John, we've got Gazza, we've got Nick, and we are ready to talk all things football. First of all, John, lovely to see you finally escaped retail hell. How are you doing?
Well, it took me to have a holiday to be able to be on the show. But yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Had a great Christmas, great New Year, and happy to be back talking about 2 National League sisters as well throughout the show. So can't wait to drop those names in.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that. Gareth, lovely to have you back as well. If you're anything like me, you were back this week at school. And so now all of a sudden we're feeling very tired again all of a sudden.
I'll tell you what, I could do with another week off, I reckon. It's been tricky. Good to be back. Not glad though, Mr. Foster, to be seeing Easter eggs in supermarkets already. Pre January the 1st, I was seeing Easter eggs in supermarkets, and that's on you. Mini eggs though, they can stay.
All my fault. It's exactly what I want to do on Christmas Eve. That's exactly what I want to do. Stay till midnight, take all the Christmas stuff off, and put Easter eggs on the shelf. All my fault.
You must be excited about that.
It's so far away. Why? We haven't got past Valentine's Day yet, and that's bad enough. Right, anyway, let's move it away from that before we end up doing some sort of Martin Lewis money show. That's a completely different area. Nick, lovely to have you back with us as well for the Women podcast. How are you doing? Good festive season?
Good festive season. Just don't like the frost and snow that we get up north these days.
Yeah, strange, isn't it? It seems to come now, which is really bizarre. So all of that time during Christmas, it felt just like ordinary. And now all of a sudden, it's like winter. And you're like, no, but we've just had Christmas. So if Christmas was now, you'd actually feel like Christmas, I think. But there we go. Nothing we can do. Unless John sticks it in the shops, you can always just do that. You can have another Christmas. Do it in June. Why not?
Fixmas. Have June down in the Falklands.
It's not like Midlanders haven't asked for it to be Christmas every day, is it? It's very much their sort of thing.
We got it a couple of weeks ago when a couple of days ago when the men actually managed to win a football match. Yeah, what more do I want? That was a Christmas miracle.
There you go. We love a Christmas miracle. And our Christmas miracle today is that we are going to be delivering to you the gift of the WNL. And as we so often do, we will start with the Northern Premier. Very much looking forward to talking about this particular league, as you can see there, because there's a lot going on. It is quite something up there, and I suppose it would be remiss of us not to start with young Nicholas here, so he's got the chance to do a little bit of bragging, I suppose. But yes, let's take a little look at this then, Nick. Wolves top of the table. 34 points, Burnley just behind. We could have seen a changeover. Didn't quite happen, though.
Well, let's first start with the last game of 2025. It was a small matter of a Black Country derby. Wolves travelled across to the Alexander Stadium and dominated those stripy Tesco carry bags. Other supermarkets are available. And we came away victorious over our Black Country rivals. 3-0. The Wolves ravaged them. Opened the scoring early with a Morph-Olympico straight from the corner. Then we kept going. We added a second. We added a third. And we've finished the game off comfortably. Top of the table. Looking down on everybody else. Looking forward to the first game of 2026, where we'll travel to those Lancastrians at Burnley. who would, of course, want to make sure they had the game on, or at least let people know if there was going to be issues with the pitch, noting the frosty conditions in the north of England that weekend. And we ask on Monday, we ask on Tuesday, we ask on Wednesday, we ask on Thursday, still nothing. We get to Friday, still nothing. We ask again on Saturday, and there's still silence. We get to Sunday. 4 of the 6 had already been called off. Stoke was called off at 8:30, and we still nothing from Burnley. They go, welcome, come and watch us. Kirsty Lavelle's going to be on the front cover of the programme, which you can buy in this ground. We get to 11:30. Everyone got there already because it's a long way up to Leyland in Blackburn, not Burnley. And Burnley suddenly go, oh, look, the pitch is frozen. We cannot have a game. Sorry, Wolves and Wolves fans. Oh, no, we don't say the word sorry. We don't even apologise. We just go, game's off, crack on. We'll do it again at some other point. See you later. That is the story of Wolves' trip to Lancashire, failed by the poor planning and poor communication of Burnley Football Club.
But you've missed a bit of the beautiful trek home, knowing that you have another week at the top of the WNL Northern Premier.
Another couple of weeks, because this weekend it's Cup weekend, and both ourselves and our Lancashire friends are in the FA Women's National League Cup, which all the big clubs are in. Us, Burnley, West Brom, well, not Berwick, and Middlesbrough from the north are in the FA Women's National League Cup action. I could say the best clubs, but that would still include West Brom, and they're not. And we go again. Instead of the soulless bowl that is the Alexander Stadium, we welcome our brethren from the other side of the Black Country to the Sears Stadium for a Black Country derby in a cup quarter final. It is made for football. That is the place to be on Sunday, 2 p.m. Sears Stadium. See you all there. I would talk about the other football, but there was nothing on else, basically.
It's Shakespearean, is what I've put this as in the group chat as we were just talking there. It's been a proper Shakespearean tragedy listening to you talk there about how you made it all the way to Burnley before finally realising that there would be no football today. But yes, it's not ideal to have left it so late, especially when there were so many casualties. But Gareth, you are our usual Northern correspondent when we're talking about these sorts of things. We've had a really good story there about the top of the table. Is there anything perhaps that you can give us around the rest of the table? Because looking at it and how it's changed, not too much going on around the bottom. But I know there is a little bit of something that you can let us know with regards to Liverpool Feds. You've mentioned it in our group chat that we talk about. I had seen it through Twitter, and I was hoping that they would have dealt with it. They haven't as yet. So, yeah, talk to us a little bit about your take on the league as it stands so far, but specifically on this one, why it is that Liverpool Feds have been kicked off of Instagram like an orange in an apple cart.
Well, I think we'd actually like to know. I think that's part of one of the issues. For those that don't know, Liverpool Feds have had their account suspended. I think it's now been permanently removed again. It's happened a number of times. I think this is the second time this season, or second time within. I think it happened over the summer as well, where Meta, Instagram, have suspended their account. They have not too long ago published an open letter to Meta or Instagram, essentially wanting to know 3 things. Obviously, the Instagram and Facebook, because the two are connected, are really important ways of connecting with fans. I think we're seeing the number of people that use X potentially on the decline, and the number of people that use Instagram potentially on the up. So that it's tricky, and obviously there are demographics of people that use Facebook and not other things as well. So it's a really important platform for a number of things, promotional content, just getting to know the players and the teams and sharing achievements and interacting with fans. I think the comment section on Instagram are usually a bit nicer. video content is easier to share. You can share more pictures, more images, just a nicer platform in a lot of ways. Ultimately, they just want to know three things. What rules did they break in order to have their account suspended? What warnings were given, if any, because they weren't aware of any? And, what opportunities have there been to correct that and appeal that? It is frustrating. I think there's been times where, I don't think that there's anything particularly, you see some football clubs and their logos are particularly similar to another or whatever. It's ridiculous. And I think the really sad thing is I just don't think that there'll be any kind of acknowledgement. I don't think there'll be any kind of anything really that can be done to get, those accounts or followers back. I've said it a number of times that I think Feds are a side that I think lots of tier 4 clubs can look up to as an example of how you can establish yourself as a tier 3 side. You look at that league and you look at Wolves, Burnley, Stoke, West Brom, Middlesbrough, Hull, Derby County. These are all clubs with successful EFL sides, backing them to varying levels. Although Wolves had a tricky season so far, they are a Premier League club. Their most recent, I think, 4 of their however many points in the last 12 months have come against Man United, but we'll gloss over that. But they are successful clubs in with kind of big incomes, and Feds are an independent club in Liverpool who have really carved out and create something special. And I think that they seem to do it sustainably. Obviously, I don't know an awful lot about their financial situation, but they've got a good ground. Seem to do things sustainably, and although they are sort of further down that bottom end at the moment, 5 points clear of the relegation, they've typically been a side that will finish 6th or 7th, not particularly threaten the top, not particularly threaten the bottom, and just be and they're establishing themselves now as a tier 3 club, and yeah, it's a real shame that for those independent clubs that don't necessarily have that powerhouse backing, for them to kind of be a victim of something like this, where they're trying to really carve out that slot as the third side in the city. And I think they definitely are, and there's definitely lots of potential for them to grow the fan base and grow the football in the city.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, we're all involved in football clubs in one form or another, and we all see how social media is used. As you said, people use X, people use Instagram, people use TikTok. People are going across various different platforms in order to try and widen the fan base and the reach as much as they possibly can. So it just seems bizarre to me, to say that you've broken our community guidelines. And how? Like, I'm struggling to see how any women's football team is, or any football team full stop, is breaking community guidelines. Like, what could they possibly be doing wrong? Like, you see some of the stuff that comes out on Instagram. Like, I'm not being funny, that there's worse community guideline things than a couple of people kicking about football. So it's really quite sad. And my biggest hope will be that if people see that open letter, or see any of those things, share it, make a noise about it, whinge about it, in the hope that they see it, because it's not the first time. It's been deleted a couple of times before, I believe. Each time they've managed to let them have it back, but it's like they're keeping this strike against them. What's the whole strike? Like, there's literally no point. There's nothing that they are posting that is that bad. John, we really haven't heard your voice too much, and you're probably the neutral voice at this point at the moment. I was going to talk to you about Wolverhampton and Burnley, but I'm very interested in Sporting Calcer down the bottom there, as I know that's one of your bingo card teams. So perhaps you could let us know a little bit around the bottom, and are you expecting Calcer to come up with a late Braveheart type challenge, or are they going to go the way of William Wallace?
I'm sure you're setting me up for this bingo card here. First of all, I was waiting for 4 days to see how Nick would articulate this Wolves, Burnley fiasco, and I thought he did very, very well. So he's done well there, keeping it nice and calm. Cal said, yeah, obviously they got a game in hand. The game against Liverpool Feds was postponed on Sunday. Their next game is against Hull. Can they turn it around? Absolutely. There's only a couple of games in it, isn't there? So yeah, I do believe that Cal's are doing a lot of good things, but there's a lot of competition in this league now, isn't there? You look at the mid-table sides, there's like a lot of strength in depth there that I will talk about shortly as well. Cal's did have a couple of friendlies. Well, they arranged a couple of friendlies over the New Year period. I think one went ahead and one didn't. So they're still being active, so that's what they chose to do. They could have just sat back and had a break and did a couple of training sessions, but instead they went out to push themselves, especially with one of the games that they did try and set up. So yeah, so Kelso, I think they will keep building, but whether or not they can overtake Derby and Halifax, I guess we'll have to see, won't we? Rest of the teams, just to flip it on his head, because we've got Nick on the show. One of the teams I've been most impressed with, looking at that league table this season, is West Bromwich Albion. Nick, when have you ever seen Albion be up in 5th place at this time ever in Tier 3? So yeah, I think when you talk about Midland clubs, surely they're performing way above expectation, even though they are massively behind Wolves in that points tally, aren't they?
I said in Since 71 article I did that Shiv has done wonders with that club this season. They're definitely doing a lot better than they have done previously. And to be honest, on the the Wolves Win podcast before, when we previewed the West Brom game, the last West Brom game, we thought it'd be a lot tighter than it was against us, because they have been doing so well. They pushed Burnley. They lost 1-0 at the Alexander Stadium to Burnley. They've been really, doing really well. And as you say, they're not normally this high up. It's usually only on the first day of the season when they won't win the first game of the season do they get that high up. So for them to actually be there on merit, 12 games in, is huge. They nearly got the same points that they had the whole of last season already. So yeah, credit to Shiv, credit to West Brom. They're doing well there. I think once they start playing sort of Wolves Burnley rugby again, I think they'll slip slightly. I think they'll finish best of the rest. And I think Middlesbrough will actually overtake him in the long run. But yeah, no, they're doing well.
Massive shout out. Yeah, massive shout out to Middlesbrough as well. Comparing in my day, they've only just been promoted to be where they are as well. And the other Midland team is Derby County. Shout out to Ebony Locke, who is one of two sisters who's moved clubs over the new year. Real good defender from Birmingham Academy. You see this a lot in the Midlands. Birmingham Academy players venture out into the pyramid. A lot of the players tend to go into Tier 4 or Tier 5 sides to get regular game time, but Ebony has actually gone straight into a Tier 3 side. And one of her biggest fans this morning described her as one of her biggest fans described her as a tenacious, with a fighting spirit, a forward attacking defender with a passion to cross into the box. She's hardworking and very committed. So someone that I've seen about the place in the past 12 months, very approachable, very lovely person with a good footballing family. So yeah, can't wait to see if she makes that impact for Derby County, because they are borderline at the moment, aren't they?
They are.
Absolutely.
I saw Derby a couple of weeks back when Wolves played them, and they were really well organised, and it was a surprise where they are at the minute. I think they had a bad few games in August, which has really set them back. Sam Griffiths is an excellent coach, and I think she's got them well organised. But I think it alludes to how strong this division is that Derby, who are a really good team, are sitting 10th with only 10 points, and with Loughborough and Kelso breathing down the necks. And I mean, it's interesting. I think, if I remember rightly, it is Loughborough versus Kelso this weekend, I think.
Loughborough Derby. So yeah, Loughborough Derby. So
yeah, sorry,
two massive games. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Loughborough. Yeah, you're right. Loughborough versus Derby. So it's big. That's a big game at the bottom of that league. There could end up with, if Loughborough can do something there, end up with them getting out to the relegation zone. But it's Derby, as I said, good team. Just surprised they are where they are.
Yeah, very good indeed. It's looking pretty tight, like we say, down there at the bottom. Pretty much anything could and probably will happen down there. And I suppose you could really be looking at any two from the bottom four, but you just never know. Those other teams really all the way up to sort of maybe even fourth potentially could find themselves dropping down there if they have a little run of bad games during the second half of this season. But of course, you're looking at the top three for the title. And what's really interesting to see about this league is how close all the games are together. Most of them having played 12 with the exception of just Hull and Cowser. So, yeah, quite nice to see a league where the games are pretty similar. Now, I'm going to share this tab instead. Look at that absolute speed with which we managed to do that and keep the page without having to lose it and then come straight back on. So here we are with the Southern Premier, and it's tight. It's tight on the Southern Premier when you look at it. Bournemouth still top of the table with 30 points, still unbeaten, haven't lost a game, won 9, drawn 3. That keeps them just the 1 point ahead of Watford, who have lost a couple of games, hence why they are not top of the pile. But within that, you've also got Plymouth Argyle, third place there, 3 points off of top. And they really are your Oscar nominees, I suppose, with the opportunity for making it into the WSL 2. The remainder of the teams all sort of fighting for the, as Nick called it, the best of the rest position. Real Bedford doing incredibly well up there in fourth spot. But as you get further down, what we have noticed here, Billericay, they're not mathematically down. They can still get to 27 points, which would be enough to put them in third. But their lack of any points over the previous 13 games does not give you much hope in terms of them being able to achieve such a feat. So it does look like Billericay will go down this time, and unlike last season where they were given a reprieve, it might well be that that date is getting ever closer. But AFC Wimbledon are sat there with an opportunity to escape, and really, again, you are looking at any one basically from possibly about 4 or 5 teams. So, John, we can complete your bingo card for the WNL quite easily, I think, this season. But one of those teams is obviously Cheltenham Town. Anything you notice here from a Midlands point of view with regards to the Southern Premier?
Yeah, well, there really is only just Cheltenham to talk about. And if you can class Cheltenham as Midlands, it's the northernmost team in the south. Yeah, look, it's a massive achievement, and it's fifth in the league. Went through some changes over the summer with their coaching staff, which obviously led to a few players coming and going. Point of note, they've lost a couple of strikers over the past 6 weeks or so. One to their rivals, Plymouth Argyle. Una Lou has gone on a full-time contract, so that's going to be very interesting to see if Cheltenham can keep up that good form. I appreciate that looking at it, they've played 1 or 2 games more than maybe some others. However, that's still great. I think the pathway was kind of there last season when they reached a couple of finals. They didn't win them finals, but they still got to 2 finals and survived relegation in the end. And they've built on that, haven't they? So, massive well done to what they're continuing to do there. And it shows that the foundations are in place. So just when a coach leaves, you can still keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I think so. Nick Gareth, I'll obviously open it to you as well, just in case there is anything you want to add. But again, it does look like it's going to be really either Bournemouth, Watford, or Plymouth. But again, really good to see 2 WNL divisions there in Tier 3, both looking highly competitive, both at the top and the bottom.
Yeah, it is really competitive. I think one thing to pick out from is whilst Bournemouth got a draw this weekend, hashtag were leading till I think it's the 90th plus 2, 90th plus 3, 4 minutes when Bournemouth got their equaliser. So it means it was very close to Bournemouth actually losing for the first time in something like 3 seasons, 2 to 3 seasons there. So it was a close one, and that obviously helps hashtag hugely getting that point. They would have gone down to Bournemouth, and would have getting a point, take away a point would have been a big result for them there. I think the other game to note is that Watford did beat Plymouth in the game. It was the only game that was played on grass in the FA Women's National League, I believe. This weekend just gone, because it was played on Saturday at home of Plymouth Argyle. and it was that was played on Saturday afternoon instead of Sunday, which meant it went ahead. And Plymouth probably wish it had been played on Sunday because they lost 3-1, but that put Watford into their position they are there. I think my only other observation would be whilst Gwalior United did win against Billericay, it was only 2-1 victory. So that's either Gwalior are only just slightly better than Billericay Town, or Billericay Town are improving a lot and therefore have worked hard over the Christmas break and could well come back recharged, batteries raring to go because it was such a close game, especially as it was up at Gwalior. So long journey for Billericay across the country on just after Christmas to come away with only losing 2-1 isn't a bad score. Will be my one observation. They do need some points on the board soon.
Gaz, any observations from you?
No, nothing kind of really to add other than we want close and exciting leagues, and I think having the playoff for both of these leagues now really does add that sense of intrigue. Is it going to be Bournemouth, Watford, Plymouth in that top three? Which order they're going to be in? Who's going to win promotion in the league? Who's going to make the playoff? Who's going to miss out altogether? It really does add that layer, and I'm hoping that in the not too distant future it can be a permanent fixture. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to go yet this season, but I think it's definitely making a lot of the leagues a lot more interesting. But even where you look at like the Premier Division North, rugby are not out of the equation there in that third spot either, looking for that playoff. So just hope I think that's added a real layer to these title fights.
Yeah, I think it has. I think you're absolutely spot on there. So there we go. That is tier 3 in a sort of a nutshell. But certainly it is looking good for Bournemouth. They've got that game in hand, and if they can make that count, they could really put themselves in the box seat with the last 9 or 10 games being played. Right, over to the Division 1 North. Now, there is some consternation when it comes to the Division 1 North. Not that there would be anybody like a stakeholder here at all to talk about such things, but a really important point. So, obviously, on our thumbnail, we generally tend to put the teams that are top of the divisions in the little holes. We can show you them. It's not a problem. Look at this. There we go. There are all. It's gone. There it is. Lovely. So as you can see, we pop into those lovely little circles the badges of the teams that are top of the table. Now, at the time when I made my initial thumbnail, Huddersfield Town were indeed top of the Division 1 North. But technically, they weren't, because they were awaiting a points deduction, which I'm sure that young Gareth will talk to us about in just a second. But that points deduction did mean that rather than being on exactly 25 points and therefore top of the table via goal difference, that they lost those couple of points, and Wythenshawe are sat top of the table, but with a game played more than Huddersfield Town. So we'll go to our northern correspondent, Gareth Townsend, to take us through the Division 1 North.
Well, the first thing I'll say is that I am being very, very consistent over the last 2 and a bit years of doing this show when I've said that I would rather have points on the board than games in hand. And I'm just going to sit here and admire this table because it looks bloody good, doesn't it? 3 years in a row we've been top on Christmas Day, 3 different divisions, top of the league, Christmas Day, happy days. There was one game that took place the weekend last weekend, which was Stockport County scoring 2 second-half goals to beat Chorley. That was the only game that survived the weather due to it taking place on a 3G pitch at Stockport Sports Village. So County were able to close that gap as well. There are 5 sides separated by 3 points at the top of the league, which, we said last year that this was a league that was close and hard fought all the way up to the end of the season. And it does look like that is going to be the case again this year. Everyone I seem to speak to sort of seems to say that one of those sides is the best side they've played all season. I've spoken to people who've said Huddersfield are the best side they've played this year. I've spoken to people who've said Leeds are the best side they've played this year. I've been told that Wythenshawe are the best side that teams have played this year. I'm sure Cheadle and Stockport have had people say that about them as well, but they've not said it to me. It wasn't deliberately missing those out. But this is fantastic, right? And there's 2 spots to be filled by 2 of these 5 teams that are looking to go. All of these teams have slipped up and made mistakes. We've not got a side at the top that has failed to win a game. There's sort of failed to lose a game. All of these teams have been beaten. All of these sides have dropped points. And all of these sides have ground out fantastic results. So, and I think the good thing is all of these teams have got to play each other again. One thing I will say, final game of the season, Wythenshawe away to Huddersfield Town could be an absolute belter. Hopefully for us, potentially for Huddersfield, maybe for both of us, who knows? It could be a title decider. I would like the title to be wrapped up before then if we're going to be in that discussion. But yeah, it's fantastic. Obviously, we don't want to see, or I don't want to see leagues and competitions won off the pitch. We want it to be done on the pitch. But just to kind of run through, Huddersfield played an ineligible player in November. I've not got any confirmation over what game that is. Detective Nick over here trawled through full time to kind of be able to isolate when it may have been. But as part of that fielding an ineligible player, they were deducted 2 points, hence the correction that sits there. In terms of what's to come this coming weekend, there are 3 games taking place. All of them have been postponed from earlier in the season. Wythenshawe will travel to Norton and Stockton for the game rearranged from last weekend. Huddersfield host, I believe, Doncaster Rovers, and Leeds United play York City. So the top 3 are in action. So who this time next week will be sat top of the pile? Who knows? It could genuinely be anyone's guess. The way that some of those sides towards the bottom have been almost kind of pulling out massive shock results. Durham, I think, beat Cheadle, I think it is. Blackburn almost got a point against Huddersfield, took a late equaliser. I think Durham also conceded late against Leeds. So any result can happen here or there. The other thing to kind of mention as well is some changes off the pitch at Cheadle. This week, their manager, Dylan Wimbury, resigned from his position as manager, which I think, came as a surprise to quite a few people. They've been in a good position, won the regional Premier Division 2 years ago, and lost out by the narrowest of margins last year to Middlesbrough. So has achieved some really fantastic things there. One thing to note as well is a transfer towards the top of the table. Niamh Birtwistle leaving Cheadle Town to join Huddersfield over Christmas is one hell of a signing for Huddersfield. I know Niamh from when I was at FC United, and she's a Rolls Royce of a midfielder. So yeah, unfortunately for the rest of us, that's a top class signing from Huddersfield, and hopefully, it doesn't impact us too much. But yeah, a great signing, a real loss for Cheadle to lose Niamh, but a real coup for Huddersfield to be able to bring her in. Down the bottom looks pretty close. As we've said before, you suspect that Chester Street is starting to eke out that bit of a gap, but York and Doncaster do have those games in hand. So if some of them can pick up some big results, then lots of things can happen down that bottom end as well. So I think you'd be a brave person to bet on either the promoted sides or the relegated sides here. Even Blackburn improving every time. They've got that point now on the board. I think they've got that first point. Are they going to be able to look and try and score some more points elsewhere? I think they probably will. I think their points tally doesn't necessarily reflect the quality in that team. And if they can go to places like Doncaster, York, Chester Street, Durham, and pick up some results, then maybe they can start to climb towards safety. I still think it's a big ask, but there will be some confidence in there from their pre-Christmas point that they've achieved. If they can kind of get another good result this month, then who knows what can be achieved moving forward.
No, absolutely couldn't agree more. And as you say, it's a really exciting league. This is one that we said, as you said, last year, we were fascinated by. I think still just as fascinated watching what is happening right now. Let's have 5 teams that are all vying for that top spot. Yes, on different degrees of games played, but still absolutely unreal. That is properly what you call entertainment. And we do need to celebrate Blackburn Rovers because although you said they missed out on a point, they did, since we last showed this league table, collect a point. So that's great news for them. They've started to move in the direction of grabbing some points. I only need 6 more to catch York, which is still very doable with 10 games to go. So lots that we can be looking forward to in the Division 1 North. Now, as we move ourselves ever so slightly down into the Division 1 Midlands, where John will step forth and talk to us about the joys of Midlands football. We have got the mighty Boldmere St Michael's, a team close to my heart, actually. I've always quite liked a bit of Boldmere St Michael's. I think it's a very nice name for a football team. You know, we talk about Liverpool Feds, but I think Boldmere St Michael's doesn't seem like the sort of team that you'd expect to see at the top of a nearly professional football league. And there they are, right above the likes of Peterborough United and Barnsley and Sheffield. Maybe not Sheffield United, but still big teams that you would expect to see. Even the mighty Kidderminster Harriers, they are above them too. So there's lots of teams going on there. John, take it away, sunshine. We've been waiting for what feels like a decade to have you back on the show to talk to us a little bit about what's going on with Midlands football. And also Lincoln United as well, getting themselves a point, I think, at some point. So take us away.
Yeah, it's a great league, and it's probably not as tight as it was this time last season, but there's still a lot of decisions still to be made, and we'll go through that shortly, I'm sure. But yeah, Bournemouth have got 5 points clear at the top. That's their 5th successive league win last Sunday. There's a 5-1 away win versus Barnsley Women. They've also announced a couple of departures in the last week as well. Their leading goal scorer, Leonie Joyce, has left the club, which I think raised a few eyebrows. I know she's not played or started at least about 3 or 4 of the last games. So it's a bit of a shame when your leading goal scorer isn't part of the team anymore. But obviously that's a mutual decision that was made between them, and I'm sure she'll go on to perform at a new club whenever that might be. And then their goalkeeper, Daisy Jenkins, is also now a free agent. I'm sure someone will be lined up for her in the very near future. But yeah, 2 very good players that a top of the table team has lost, and I'm sure whichever teams that them 2 players go to, they'll strengthen them teams 100%. And then they're bringing in Ebony Locke's sister, Ellie Maylock. So obviously Ebony is a defender in the family, and Ellie Maylock is their goalkeeper. I described her last season as the best goalkeeper in Tier 5, and I'd probably go as far as saying she's probably one of the best goalkeepers in Tier 4 as well. So Bournemouth definitely looking like they're playing a bit of business over the new year and really pushing on to clinch at least the top 2 spots, maybe even outright as well. Peterborough, with 3 games in hand, it's absolutely amazing to see that they're not so far behind and 3 games behind it, aren't they? Still undefeated in the league. They didn't play on the weekend, but they do travel to an upbeat Stourbridge this Sunday. So that'll be interesting. They definitely can't underestimate Stourbridge based on recent results. I think a few teams probably have underestimated them. That's why maybe Stourbridge have got a few wins lately. But yeah, I'm sure Peterborough will come there if the game is on, of course, and hope to claw back a few of those points to catch Bournemouth. Other 2 results from last Sunday was obviously Stourbridge's 5-3 win away to Notts County, which has took them back out the relegation area now for the 2nd time this season. Goals from Liv Owen, 2 from Ella Brennan, Caitlin Dealey, and Jess Edwards. FA full time hasn't been updated in mind. So I always like to throw that bit in there at this time of the week. But yes, great win for them. And just a little bit on Stourbridge. They are building because they got like a very, very young team, very inexperienced at this level, very inexperienced and young manager. But I think what they've done is they're quite stable. You know, they haven't got many players leaving. They're just gradually bringing players in. They all seem very happy. I think they've only had 2 departures all season. If you compare that to other teams in the bottom 6, that's very low. And what Meg Bailey's doing is bringing through some of her under 18s players. So Meg Bailey, the manager of Stourbridge, also looks after the under 18s as well, who are flying high in that league. So when possible, she's bringing through some of those under 18s who are very loyal to her, hardworking, and knows her style. So Stourbridge are gradually chipping away. I know, like about 3 or 4 months ago, it was very hard for them just to get more than 3 points on the board. But now they are on 11. So yeah, they are gradually picking up some points. And then the other game was Sutton Coldfield 1, Worcester City 1. That was the only other game to be played last Sunday. Both beginning the season well, I think, picking up points early on and then just consistently picked up points. 2 teams that I thought would be in the relegation scrap at the start of the season, but I think with Northampton probably performing lower than what I thought, and Kiddie Harriers in the mix there, a little bit unstable points-wise at the moment as well. I think that kind of inflated what Sutton and Worcester have done as well. Massive shout out to Sheffield. We mentioned newly promoted clubs throughout this show already, but Sheffield's another one. You know, they got promoted from Tier 5 to Tier 4 last season, and they're sitting 3rd. Absolutely phenomenal, isn't it, to say that? And I know the manager at the start of the season said he was going to push towards the top, and you know, I didn't know the manager too well back then, but I do now, and I hear a lot of good things about him, and for him to achieve 3rd at this stage of the season, I think is very, very good. And finally, just one other game to look forward to going forward is Lincoln against Leafield. So Leafield 3 games in hand due to their good cup runs, especially the FA Cup. Luke Beersmore is currently the interim manager, whilst Tash is enjoying her last 4 weeks in a private life. But Leafield probably not going to win the league the way Peterborough and Barnsley are now playing. But you never know; they might be able to claw back some points and get that second spot. Nick, I know you've probably got a few views on Tier 4 Midlands. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see where Peterborough are. I mean, they've been the perpetual. I'm going to be blunt. Perpetual bottlers over the last few years. They should have been promoted many years ago, and I think it's good to see them sort of there pushing for that. And I think the way they are at the minute, I think they should be able to see through the season. They seem to have. It always seems to be a psychological thing. It was never an issue with the players. The quality of the players they had was there. It seemed to be a psychological thing. Where I think they've sorted out the psychological issues within the club there. I don't know what it was, but their winning mentality, their battling is seems to sort themselves out. So it's going to be a real sort of be interesting to see them versus Carl Henry's Boldmere going all the way to the end. But my money would be on Peterborough to win the league at that point. I'm happily stick that one, and not because they're just up the road from me, but because I think they are actually doing really well, and it's going to be interesting to see them in Tier 3 Northern next season. I'm really pleased to see Worcester doing so well. They sort of struggled last season, finished 10th, if you remember rightly, but they've seemed to have sort of stabilised, built around the players they got, brought in a couple more loan players. Wolves got 3 loan players there. They're doing really well for the loan players, but also I think it's good experience for them playing in that Worcester scene, that Worcester setup. It's a really positive setup. It's another, like Feds in the Northern, it's another club, the independent club, run really well, really strong, independent women's focused football club. So it's really good to see. As I say, Leafield, smashing it again under Tash. I'd argue they're overachieving again. Tash is doing an amazing job there. I think it's going to be really interesting down that bottom end. Northampton are obviously struggling. Lincoln United picked up, sort of did that sort of tried to do that merger with Lincoln City, and then it all sort of fell apart, and now are struggling again. So follow Lincoln City into the relegation zone. I think they're probably favourites now to be dropped. And it's going to be sort of Northampton, Kiddie, Stour, and probably Sutton in that sort of 3-4 way for the final slot. I think, that Northampton losing so many key players over the summer, especially Jade Bell, who's gone to Cambridge United, is going to be a huge impact. My own question, I suppose, back to you, John, is where do you see some of those players who've left sort of Boldmere ending up, Daisy and Leo Joyce? I mean, Leo's been to most of the the Midlands clubs, so I think it's only Kiddie and West Brom she hasn't played for, I think. So I think it'll be interesting to see where she ends up. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it is awkward because I think Leo's only about 20 years old, and she's had a lot of experience at a lot of different clubs. And I think Carl Henry has been a great coach to her. I've seen a massive difference in Leo from when I saw her a hell of a lot last season playing for Stourbridge to going to Boldmere. She looks a lot more sharper, a lot faster, a lot more determined. And I think she's done really well there. And I know, obviously, her family enjoyed her being at Boldmere as well. So I think wherever she does go, so long as she keeps up that pace and she's got a good coach there to keep developing her. I think a lot of players at a certain age, older than Leo, would tend to go for either happiness in regards to where your mates are, or where the league positions are, or maybe financial. I think when you're a 20-year-old who hasn't reached the ceiling yet, you'd like to think they should go where she's going to be very well coached to keep on developing a game, and then maybe in a couple of 3 years' time, let's see where you end up. So I think from Leo's point of view, I think she just needs to maybe just look, okay, where can I continue to keep developing myself, and then maybe go from there a year or two later. As for Daisy Jenkins, obviously a very good goalkeeper. I think any team in the league would be happy to take a goalkeeper. It's just the case of if she wants first team football, how many teams can offer that, and also the travelling distance as well. There are teams out there that's probably are after a goalkeeper. So I'm sure there's been conversations. And also about what level does she want to? What level does she see herself at? I think she put on a tweet that she wants to enjoy a football again. I don't know what enjoyment means for her, but I'm sure she'll be having a few offers at least, and I'm sure we'll say it on this show as soon as it becomes public.
Just a quick one on Leo. 2 fun facts for you. I saw first Leo Joyce goal I saw when she played for Wolves was at Molineux.
Yeah.
Against Lincoln City, and a county cup game I remember was she challenged the goalkeeper. It was against Bedworth at Bedworth, and she challenged the goalkeeper for the ball, and a shin pad came off worse. It actually snapped a shin pad in two, and she got a booking for her troubles and ended up getting subbed off. Obviously, this was the days of rolling subs in the Birmingham County Cup, but so she's a feisty young player who's done well, and as you say, needs a good coach to support her development.
I'm sure you sent me that video when she signed for Stourbridge. You sent me a video, and I'm sure that might have been it.
No, definitely. It's a good player. Brilliant.
Very good. Well, there we go. What a lovely conversation that was. I'm going to have a little rest. If I don't know quite so well, I've got to put my feet up for a bit and maybe had a cup of tea, because I'm all empty now. But never mind. It's all good. And what a wonderful chat it was. And what really good to hear you say some of those things. Because actually Northampton Town, that chat about Jade Bell, I mean, that's just ridiculous how much difference one player can genuinely make to some of your life chances in the league. So yeah, really very, very interesting there as well. And yes, seeing Stourbridge jump out in the manner they have, it was really interesting hearing what you said there, John, because the Stevenage development side play in Tier 6, which is obviously the league just below the one that we're in. And the last 2 seasons, what we found is that when you have just a young group of players, and we're talking sort of 16, 17, 18, 19, the first half of the season is just dire for them, because it's almost like they're rabbits in headlights. It's really difficult. It really is women against girls in that league. But when they get to around about Christmas, they're used to playing these teams. They've played them once before. They know what to expect. So actually, when they come to the second half of the season, there's a little bit less fear, a little bit less trepidation, a little more opportunity for them if they remain quite stable, as you said. And so there's every chance that Stourbridge will maintain their position just above that dotted line, just based on the fact that they would have had that little bit more experience and got used to the league a little bit more. So really interesting. Very much looking forward to seeing how that pans out. Right, there's no Stu, as you obviously spotted right about now. So we are just going to pop over to the Division 1 Southwest real quick. And whilst we're over there, it's a shame there's no Stu, because we'd be in a situation actually where we'd have Wolverhampton Wanderers represented and they're top of their table. We'd have Wythenshawe represented and they're top of their table. Stevenage aren't in the WNL, but they're top of their table. And of course, Moneyfields with Stu top of their table, and John, I'm sure, could find a club who are top of the table somewhere. That
I've been there, done that. We've won leagues. Last year we won the league.
I'm talking about now at this very moment. I'm not at any stage denigrating the brilliant successes your teams have had over the years. I'm talking about this minute. And there we go. Moneyfields are just about top of the Division 1 Southwest, doing incredibly well. Got to give them credit there. 4 points clear of Swindon Town, who do have 3 games in hand. But as Gareth would say, better to have the points on the board, because Swindon now know that they can't afford to lose them all. They would obviously need 5 points to make themselves top of the table due to the superior goal difference. So they would need to win 1 and draw 2 as a minimum to make it to the top spot. So lots going on there. Bristol Rovers probably looking like they are just about out of the race now, just lagging behind a little bit. It's a bit like when you watch the Athletics, you see Moneyfields and Swindon Town just breaking off at the front, and Bristol Rovers and Abingdon just being left behind as it stands. But very interesting seeing down the bottom end of the table, because both Portishead and Worthing got wins over the course of the last few weeks, and as a result that has put them on to 7 points. Very important for them, because it means that once again we've got a division that has got a real promising relegation battle. It could be Worthing, it could be Portishead, it could be Ascot, it could be Keynsham. And when you look at those teams, very similar sort of goal differences. Yes, I know that -9 isn't quite as big as -24, but it's not a huge difference. And so what that tells us is there is definitely an opportunity for some of these teams to get a cheeky little win. So I will throw this out to any of the panel if they would like to mention anything there in lieu of Stu being here, but I'm sure he would be absolutely delighted with his side top of the table. Anyone got anything to like to add?
I just think again, it's proof that me and Stu are one and the same person. Because again, no Stu, but there is a Nick, and next time there'll be a Stu and no Nick. So I'm sure it's going to be they're just going to be a proof that we're just one and the same person. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this league goes. To be honest, whether Swindon can keep going. Obviously, they've got League Cup and FA Cup coming up over the next couple of weeks, which could put them further behind Monies in the sort of the fixtures in the league, and therefore it's going to be, as Gareth says, and you said, Barry, it's points versus games in hand, and therefore whether they will be able to keep the momentum going in the league with the fixture pile up as well. I think that's going to be really interesting, whether it's going to be one game too many for them in the league that will cause them problems, and whether Monies will get sneaked through the back. But whatever happens, I say this about all the actual playoffs, I think that the playoff realistically probably between sort of Monies or Swindon and Norwich or Fulham in this sort of southern tier 4 playoff is going to be really entertaining. It's going to be a proper humdinger, and I think the league needs to be seriously looking at how they're going to stream those games, because even though whilst I might not want to travel and watch the game in person, the thought of watching that game on some sort of live stream, TV, YouTube, whatever, is up there, because I think it's going to be there's going to be some real corkers both in the sort of the southern tier 4 and the sort of North/Midlands tier 4. Going to be great, and I'm just looking forward to sitting back, sort of watching Burnley versus whoever in the tier 3 playoff as well. It's I've done playoffs in Tier 3. Don't need to do them again. Thank you very much. Leave somebody else have that experience this season.
I think also it's just going to be interesting to see how much the Swindon want it. I think we need to keep an eye on their Twitter feed in the next few weeks or so while they're going to spend any of that FA Cup money to kind of give them that push that they need to get over the line this season, because hopefully as a club, they can afford to reinvest some of that money that the women's team have won for themselves, and hopefully they can maybe just bring one or two more in just to kind of consolidate that position as well.
Agree, John. Agree. They've got to spend, haven't they, realistically, to keep to do the club expansion. Sort of squad depth to keep them going.
Mm-hmm. It will be, as you say, very interesting to see how that league gets on, which leaves us with just one more league to look at, that being the Division 1 South East. And I can't quite go so far as to say it's all kicking off over there, but there is quite a bit that is happening. Obviously, with Fulham still top of the table by 4 points, but Norwich, with that game in hand, can bring that to just 1 point difference. Fulham with a draw at some point this season, which obviously was their only points dropped, whereas Norwich have not drawn any, but did lose, and that was a game earlier on in the season to Fulham. So very tight at the top there. It won't be any other teams. They are looking like they are done and dusted in that title race. It will be Fulham or Norwich that take the top spot. Very interesting to see Milton Keynes Dons. You will recall MK Dons being bottom of the Southern Premier with about 107 goals in a goal difference for them, negative 107 goals. And it was all looking terrible for them. No points at all. Well, they very recently, as in this weekend, got a rather fantastic win against Chatham Town, which you wouldn't necessarily have expected. Chatham have been one of those sides who have worked incredibly hard over the course of the last few years. But without a shadow of a doubt, we are looking at a very big result there. MK Dons winning 3-1 at home to Chatham Town. We also saw a draw between Sudbury and London Bees, which would be an incredibly helpful point, with Dulwich and Luton a few weeks ago, just the weekend before, a couple of weekends before Christmas, drawing with Luton. Incredibly big result for them because it keeps those teams really close to Sudbury. So whilst it's not looking great if you are Cheshire United, Sudbury are definitely in with a shout still of trying to find a way out of that relegation zone. Lots, like I say, happening over there in the southeast. Now, what we do know, as we've said through all of these games, is that we've got the WNL Cup coming up over the weekend, but none of these sides really have got any skin in that particular game. So we do have a few games scheduled for the weekend, providing the weather does not come in and cause any problems. We've got Actonians facing Norwich City, so that is an opportunity for Norwich to try and pull Fulham back, because Fulham will not be playing. So technically, you could see that as their game in hand. Cambridge United will be facing Chatham Town. London Bees will be facing Cheshire United, which is just do or die, really, for Cheshire at the minute. Every game is like a cup final, dare I use that. But the other big one is that Luton Town will be facing AFC Sudbury. And as you can see down there, that is absolutely huge, because if Luton do not get a win against Sudbury and it's the other way around, Sudbury will all of a sudden just be 2 points behind them. And indeed, absolutely just behind Dulwich Hamlet as well by a point. So lots happening down there in the southeast, and we will of course be keeping our eyes on it as we run through the rest of this season. There we go, that's the leagues out of the way, and we've done that nicely in about an hour, which is kind of what I wanted, because there is one last thing that I wanted us all to take a look at, because coming up, as we say, this weekend is the WNL Cup and the WNL Plate. Now, a reminder, it all changed this year. We had about 7,000 leagues, which had around about 4 teams in each one of them. Some of them had 3, just to annoy me, I think, really more than anything else, because they know that I'm quite OCD, and if there's going to be a group of four, then just keep them as a group of four. But no, let's have fours and threes, whatever. Anyway, they did that, and out of those 22 leagues, the 22 winners and the 10 best runners-up across all of them made it into the WNL Cup, and the remaining 12 runners-up and the 20 best third-place teams went into the WNL Plate. Now, I don't know what you guys have thought, but I do think it's actually made it a much more enjoyable and interesting competition. I think always in my head, I've hated the fact that you can play in a cup competition, lose, and then go on to play another competition which you could potentially win. It doesn't quite feel right. But based on your positions in a mini league, I think I can get on board with that a lot more, because it's based on how you performed over a couple of games, not just one result. So, very interesting ones. We will kick off with the slightly more prestigious WNL Cup, which is, of course, at the quarterfinal stage, as is WNL Plate. There are 4 games that will be played. We've got Burnley against Middlesbrough. Now, Burnley have smashed it so far, not including the league stages here, because I didn't have time really to look back over everything they've done over there, but it's Burnley, so they probably won every single game by about 700 goals. But they won 6-1 against Norton and Stockton Ancients in the first round of knockouts, and then beat Royal Bedford 4-0. They'll be playing Middlesbrough, who managed to beat Rugby 1-0 and then disposed of Liverpool Feds 2-1 after extra time. We've got 2 southern teams playing in Lewes and Plymouth. Lewes beating #4-1 away, and then managing to get a walkover over Dulwich Hamlet, who didn't even bother to play there. So a nice easy route for them once they had disposed of #, whereas Plymouth got a 3-0 win against Watford, which is a very good result looking at the way the league is currently, and a 3-2 win over Oxford United. Swindon will face Bournemouth. That's another huge game. We were just looking at that league. Swindon in second. And of course, Bournemouth were in the Division 1 Southwest before they were becoming the all-conquering side of the Southern Premier as it stands at the minute. Swindon winning 2-0 against Actonians and 3-1 against Cheltenham, whereas Bournemouth have both away games, and it's another away game for them, but they won 1-0 at QPR. And then 3-0 against Exeter. And then, of course, there's the little matter of a team called Wolves against West Bromwich Albion. Wolves yet to concede a goal in the knockout stages. 5-0 win over Sporting Cowser. Sorry, John, I should have told you to cover your ears there. And a 3-0 win at AFC Sudbury. Whereas West Bromwich Albion, slightly trickier time for them, a 2-0 win over Stoke. But then in the second round, they needed to go to penalties against Leeds, where they won 4-2. So, Burnley, Middlesbrough, Lewes, Plymouth, Swindon, Bournemouth, Wolves, West Brom. We kind of heard Nick's bit on Wolves. We will come to him, but we'll just come to him at the end of that. So, John, Gareth, Nick, any games there that particularly stick out for you in the WNL Cup?
For me, I'll go for Burnley, Plymouth, Bournemouth, and Wolves. I'll just keep it simple. I'm sure Gareth knows some of these teams probably a bit more than I do, but yeah, that's my little roulette there.
It's going to win each one.
Yeah.
Okay. Any of them going to extra time or penalties?
I think probably Nick would like them to, especially Burnley, get as many minutes in the legs as possible. Then maybe Wolves win by half time. I think that would be a great result for them. But no, I don't know. I mean, they are close games. I know that we laugh about Albion and Wolves, but I think all 4 of those are close games, and I've picked the favourites, but they are only just slight favourites in my opinion.
Yeah. Gaza.
Bournemouth Swindon, I think, is the most interesting of all of them. 2 teams that are flying particularly high. One thing I will say, though, is do we think that the quarterfinal should be regionalised, or do we think that the quarterfinal would be a good place to open it out nationally so you get some more interesting games? So Wolves don't play West Brom for the 14th time this season, and Burnley don't play Middlesbrough for the 4th time this season, and you actually get a little bit of kind of intrigue and something a little bit unknown. I understand it for the groups and the early knockout rounds, the first round, second round. But surely by the quarterfinal, the league, if it's a costing, surely the league have got a bit of money at this point where they can go, right, let's subsidise from travel and let's make this cup competition a bit interesting.
Right, I'm going to dive in because we got Sudbury away, and Sudbury are not Northern. I don't care what anybody says; they are not Northern. They are Eastern. but and if you want to be really pedantic, it was their Eastern. Barry, they're Eastern.
Listen, I'm with you, but the last time I tried to tell Gareth that he was a Southerner, he ended up trying to basically claim the Midlands because of the whole.
Yeah, I said East. I said the East. So I'll take it.
It was really good because it was a new team. We had not played them before. I really enjoyed seeing a new team who we never played before. And I got a lot of respect for Sudbury because they battled against us. And whilst it was 3-0, they fought like nobody's buggers to keep it at 3-0 as well. And it was a good game. I very much think quarterfinals. Personally, I'd go the round before. Should be at least national at that point, but certainly quarterfinals should be national because, as you said, when they said it was going to be regional, northern and southern, and you look at it and go, well, we played Burnley twice in the league. We don't really want to play them again because it just becomes more. It's not fun for anybody really.
Would the semi-finals still be regional? So would it be
semi-finals national?
That will be national when you get to
that. That'll be national. So and then Law of Sod will end up getting Burnley. It'll be Wolves, Burnley, and Lewis versus Swindon or something. Yeah, it'd be one of those where you just sit there and go. And I think it would be one of those as well. As you'll see, look at it and go, right. The two teams who probably, the winner will be the winner will come from the Burnley Wolves game, and you'll look at it and go, that where was the jeopardy? Where was the entertainment in that? But I think if you bring it in early, if you make it, because let's be honest, when will we get to play Lewis ever? Unless we both get far enough in the FA Cup. The chances of playing Lewis and Lewis, if you've never been to Lewis, really nice ground, do really good pies and some really nice cider as well. So there you go. It's a really good little ground, and it's a big good opportunity. I'm all for making it national at quarterfinals, as I said, if not round 2.
Sorry, Dominic. Yeah, I was just going to say, if it was scripted, it would be interesting to see in the final. Like the best in the north against best in the south. So if they were going to do that, then it wouldn't surprise me. But I think at that point, obviously, it's pretty much 50-50, isn't it? So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think sometimes you can have too much of a good thing. We all love local derbies because it means a little bit more. So if one of the teams that I enjoy watching, if they were playing a team that I never really heard of, then it probably wouldn't mean as much to me. But on the flip side, if it's a choice of going somewhere different or playing one of your local teams for the 4th time in the season, then I agree. You want to go somewhere a little bit different.
Every season for the last few seasons, we've played West Brom 3 times. I notice you're only playing 22 league games. You played them twice out of that, and then you chuck in, sort of a League Cup or FA Cup or County Cup game that as well. And in this season, we could end up playing them 4 times. It's like it just becomes. It doesn't have the same bite. It doesn't have the same energy. In that sense, realistically, the games against Forest last season were far more tasty in that sense of the word than the games against West Brom. And okay, that was partially because we battered West Brom, but it was also there was more jeopardy in those games in the games against Forest. It'll be one of those. Give me 2 games against West Brom every season and chance to play a Sudbury or a Lewis or whatever, and maybe I know we'll get the County Cup. We'll get the County Cup game as well at some point against them, but at least you're more likely. It's fewer opportunities, fewer games. I want to go national. It's the great game's growing. It gives more opportunities to people to see different teams and makes it more entertaining. And let's be honest, I think Wolves v Bournemouth now would be a really interesting game at this point. And whilst I think Swindon might well cause a bit of an upset and knock Bournemouth out at this point, and it would be an upset, it won't necessarily attract as much attention. But whereas if it was Wolves v Bournemouth, there'd be a lot of eyes on it because that could be the playoff game. Here's your warm up to it. What's the standard? Where's the differences? How do people line up? And you'll go, oh, actually, it's quite an interesting match. But Swindon Bournemouth now isn't going to do it.
And also the thing about the regionals is it's something that I found looking at the low league teams when they've been playing during the FA Cup, especially when you look at like tier 4, tier 5 levels, is that yes, you're tier 4, but the leagues aren't necessarily the same. So it's the same tier, but the standard of play in the Division 1 North, for example, might be entirely different to the standard of play in the Division 1 South East. You might have 6 or 7 teams in Division 1 North that are really, really good and are really fighting hard and got a good team spirit. You might only have 1 or 2 in the Division 1 South East, and therefore the rest of the team, it's not comparable in that respect. So I think it really is a very interesting thing. And I suppose that the thing is, we all know that we can look back at Swindon against Bournemouth and know that it was only last season that they played and they were tight games. And it really is just a case to see how well Bournemouth have progressed. You'd imagine really well, because they're at the top, as we say, of the Southern Premier. So there must be some form of progression there. And you would certainly say that they're the odds-on favourites to go win that, being the only team to play a Tier 4 side in the quarterfinals. But it's never easy. They've got the home field advantage there, Swindon. So I'm with you. I think switching it around would be amazing. And Wolves against Bournemouth, like you say, at this point right now, or even Burnley against Bournemouth, would have been a really interesting sort of way to look at it. So, yeah, I'm all for it on that one. I think maybe we should petition that. But either way, it has definitely been, I think, a much more interesting cup competition with the way that they have managed to do it this year. So there we go. Right, a quick look at the WNL plate then. And it, again, is at the quarter-final stage and a lot going on. So Cheadle Town Stingers are going to be at home to Durham Sestria. Cheadle winning 1-0 against Just Sheffield, whereas Durham Sestria won 2-0 against Sheffield United under-21s. And this is where Gareth goes slightly a stage of red. A shade of red rather, but we'll just ignore that. That's just the lighting. Cheadle Town Stingers in the second round winning 2-1 against Huddersfield, and Durham Sestria winning 2-1 away though to Stockport. So some big games there. Gwalia, with their brand new manager, will be facing Brighton and Hove Albion under-21s. Gwalia have had a huge one. They managed to beat Spurs Academy 4-3 after extra time, a side that I saw against Luton. They were not a bad side at all. Gwalia then went on to beat London Bees 3-2, which again is no mean feat. Whereas Brighton and Hove Albion won both of their away games, 3-1 against Bristol Rovers and 2-1 against Norwich, which again is no mean feat. They did incredibly well in the Division 1 South East, as we saw. Halifax, a 2-1 win against Worcester and a 3-1 win at home to Birmingham under-21s. They will be facing Chorley, who knocked out the Aston Villa under-21s 2-1 and then beat Notts County 4-0. And then we've got the mighty Moneyfields facing London City Lionesses under-21s. The London City Lionesses defeated Luton after extra time 3-2 and then went on to beat Ascot Town 2-0 away from home. Moneyfields have had it tricky. They beat Bristol City under-21s 4-1, but their game against Maidenhead, we want to talk about regionalisation, Nick. Maidenhead are never a southwest team in the history of the world. They are literally as close to London as you can possibly get, but are just unfortunate with the way geography works for the teams that are up there. But Maidenhead were caught in that, and after a 2-2 draw and extra time, Moneyfields just got through 5-3 on penalties. So Cheadle against Durham Sestria, Gwalia against Brighton Academy, Halifax and Chorley, Moneyfields against London City Lionesses Academy. What we think in there, gang? We started with John last time. We'll start with Gaza this time, I think. We'll go Gaza and then John and then Nick, because it changes it around slightly with the way the order's going. But yeah, what one's sticking out for you?
I think the interesting thing for me here is the two clubs with brand new managers. So how is whoever is taking either permanent or interim charge of Cheadle going to set up for that game? There's not been any word over who is taking charge, whether that's permanent or a temporary basis. So that's one interesting thing. Against Durham, you would imagine, looking at league form, that Cheadle would be the favourites there. But with what has transpired this week, that becomes instantly really interesting. Gwalia's manager's first game in charge against a relatively unknown outfit, obviously with the Brighton and Hove Albion Academy. So that's interesting as well with that. So particularly, given that, are these PJ clubs, do they have people out on academy development registration loans? So, are there good players out there playing for other teams this weekend? So, yeah, interesting. I think there's something to play for kind of in everything, really. You've got Cheadle, new manager, playing Durham. Halifax Chorley is Tier 3, Tier 4. Moneyfield's London City Lionesses Academy. I'm sure Stu would throw back to when Moneyfields drew London City Lionesses in the FA Cup, and that been a fantastic game. So a little bit of a rerun there. And then obviously Gwalia, brand new manager against Brighton Academy. So there's a little bit of something in each of these, which is interesting. I know it has been regionalised again, but it has sort of thrown up some interesting ties, more so than the cup has been able to.
Yeah, I think this one does look a lot more tighter to call. But could we see 2 semi-finals that's got no academy teams in them? And I think that's definitely a possibility. So it looks like Nick wants to jump on that one. So yeah, I'll let him have the final say.
I'm cheering on Moniz and Gwalia on this one every step of the way. I want them to batter the under 21s and be done with it. Don't get me started on having these teams in our cup competitions. I think it's just wrong, and I could be here for a long time on that. It's we'll say no more about them at the minute because they frustrate me. But yeah, go Moniz, go Gwalia. Let's have what do we want? A Moniz versus Halifax, Gwalia versus Cheadle semi-finals. There you go. That should be interesting and entertaining for everybody.
Do you know, I was not initially enamoured by the fact that the PGA clubs were going to be coming in, but with everything that we're just talking about different games, different matches, different scenarios, I kind of feel like it did provide that this season. There was something a little bit different about the competition, certainly in the group stages as well. Don't get me wrong, some of the academy teams were just tripe in terms of what they actually offered to it. But, I mean, again, they've been in there and they've been beaten. What's really good to see is that the Tier 3 and 4 teams are, keeping pace with or doing better than, in some cases, in the academy teams, which you'd really want to see as well. So, I don't know. I don't know that I hate it as much as I did at the beginning. Gaz, has yours changed? Because we know that Withenshaw got an incredibly good attendance once you dropped off the under-21s from Manchester United and got yourself a few people through the gate. We've seen it now for most of the season. Are we feeling a little bit less angry? I mean, Nick's not, obviously. You could see that. He nearly came through the screen at that point. But have you calmed down at all?
I still don't like it. I think, if it wasn't Man United and it wasn't our first home game of the season after winning promotion last year and kind of it being a school holidays, summer evening, all that kind of stuff, I don't think it would have been as high. If we'd got Charlton Athletic Academy, then, that's a bit wetter, for want of a better word. So no, it's not completely changed my plan. I don't think it's not the job of the WNL to develop players for the WSL, which is essentially why the PGA clubs are there. I think.
Gav, it's not even for the WNL. So it's not even for the WSL teams. The reasoning is what the FA want the PGAs in there is to help develop England players. That's the reason, and if you want to develop England players, expand the WSL properly, expand WSL2 properly, and encourage a proper loans market where the girls from the best girls from the from the WSL academy teams can go out and get proper game time, playing proper fixtures, and have a proper reserve setup that the PGA teams play into alongside the FA Women's National League reserve teams, and actually make it a proper competitive structure in the background if you want to do it. But they don't. They want to play, and it's really bad. And the proposals that they put forward with bringing the PGA teams in they threw the whole lot out, even the good stuff they had in there, because the people turned around and said, we don't want the PGAs anywhere near our league structure. And they got the hump, and the FA really had a proper shop on about it and said, no, we're not going to do any of the improvements that would have actually been really beneficial because of it. And I'm sure that there'll be, it was all tied into the restructuring of the WSL, etc. They could have parked the changes. and let the WSL restructure, then come back in a couple of seasons later to do it. If that, sort of let that happen, then 2 seasons later we'll do ours. No, they got their fingers burnt. And they went, we're taking our ball home and not because we're not winning, and it's pathetic. It really was from the FA. I'm sorry, Gareth. I had to get on my high horse there. Sorry, I'll let you carry on now.
No, I still don't like the idea. And like I say, like Nick said, the purpose is to develop players, and that's not WNL's job. I think the ADR system that's come in this year has worked pretty well. We've got a couple of players on that. And like Nick said, I think the loan market is really important. It works well enough in the men's game, so why not let's utilize that properly in the women's game?
Very interesting. As I say,
it has been interesting. Like, it was an interesting game. It was cool to go out and play against players, and then the next week you look on the bench for the Champions League game, and there's the same players on that team sheet as the one on our team sheet, and so that's cool. So there is some benefits. The financial benefit for some clubs is there, but only from a select few of those PGAs actually going to play it. Your Arsenal's, Chelsea's, Liverpool, City's, United City didn't play, I don't think. But then you've got your London City Lionesses, your Charlton. Like, no disrespect to those clubs, but they're not going to bring in the same sort of attention that United and Arsenal would do.
Like I say, the interesting part as well is that on Monday we did a whole show talking about a FIFA Pro report that had been brought out during December. And it was really interesting in talking about how the likes of Aitana Bonmati, for example, have played in the 24-25 season between 50 and 60 games, some of the top 15 players that were on their sample. And yet you've got other players within the leagues, average players, they were calling them, that have maybe played only in terms of total minutes played between sort of 14 to 20 games. So there's a big gap between obviously the elite, and you'd expect that to a degree because obviously they're playing at international level and all that sort of thing. But it's interesting when you look down at the lower levels, we're talking about the same sort of league size, 12 teams generally in all of the leagues, only 22 games being played domestically there. But the fact that they know they've got an FA Cup game at least, the fact that they know they've got 3, possibly 4 games within this league competition automatically pushes them up a bit towards the 30, I think. So it's very interesting. They were talking about how underloading was just as bad as overloading, and that they needed to get a few more games up. So do you know what? I don't hate it.
So a couple of things with that. One, the 22-23 season, I think Stourbridge and Wolves played more domestic games than any team in the football pyramid, women's football pyramid. We certainly played 37 games by the looks of it, and I think, or 36 games. I think Stour was something similar. John will tell me every single game at this point, but there you go. But I think the principle. So I want to split it into 2. The PGAs get rid, but the principle of having more games from the league structure, etc., that they've redone, and the rejig of the leagues lower down was really positive. So I think that the whole so playing 3 games as a part of a mini cup, that's really good. The other thing I wouldn't be against, once you get into the knockout stage, once you go through that sort of cup, is that maybe you go into a sort of a Swiss model sort of league, league for it as well, if needs be. In the I've got no issue with some of these playing grounds with how we get the games, but do it that way, so you play more different teams. But yeah, the underloading thing, it's a huge issue in the top 2 divisions, because unless you're a Chelsea or Arsenal or Man United, you're only playing 23, 24. Maybe a bit more, less than 30 games in the season. Once you include the League Cup and the FA Cup, and it's sort of like.
I'd already said, and I said this on Monday, I would just take out the top 4 teams. The teams, certainly the ones that have made it into Europe, from the League Cup, the Subway Cup.
They are now, aren't they?
But they will do next year, yeah. But what I would then do is not just have it as just that and still just keep it as a WSL. I would really want to see at least tier 3 get involved in that as well. I think that really does it opens it up. Yes, they might get absolutely battered, but you're looking at trying to close that gap. So that's just me.
One thing I said about the FA Women's National League Cup is that bring the teams that finish second in the Tier 5 divisions into that cup competition. So this was pre this sort of mini league group stages, but was put them straight into the plate so that I can't remember how many it is now, but West Midlands, East Midlands, etc., Eastern, etc., all those sort of second place teams, they go into the plate competition because it gives them opportunities to play against predominantly tier 4 teams who they're going to be coming up against next following season. Gives them a chance to market themselves and see how they do it. And you could do it again. You could bring them, you could put them into the groups if you wanted to do it. It's right. You finish second. Your reward for finish second is you get a slot in the FA Women's National League Cup group stages. See how you do. If you've done well, you've been invested, you're supported, then actually there's a bit of progression. So you can see it helps clubs as well, where if you think about it, you've gone all season, you've done really well, but you finished second, and the team that finished first picks the phone up to you and goes, "Do you want to come and play for us now?" And you go, "Yeah, cheers, see you later," and off. And you go, you see that sudden churn, and that team that finished second last season now finishes 8th, 9th because they've had to completely rebuild the whole team. And I think there's a real opportunity there that you could actually give prize and incentivize people staying because there's an opportunity.
I think that is the beauty of where the women's games at the moment, is that there is lots of different ways in which they could choose to go forward and lots of different avenues as to which they could explore. So looks really, really good to me. Well, there we go. That is the first episode of 2026 in Lower League Lingo done. It's in the books, sorted and ready to go. Only 49 to go until we reach our centenary. We're unlikely to reach it this year, but who knows? Stranger things have happened at sea. We shall see where we go. Guys, I've really appreciated having all of you on the show again. John, brilliant to have you. We will leave you to go back to your Easter eggs. Gareth, lovely to have you as well. We're going to continue to allow you to shout into the ether about the thumbnail. And of course, Nick, brilliant to have you. I'm sure you will continue to be screaming about the fact that you ended up going all the way to Burnley, and of course the joys of West Bromwich Albion. It's been an absolute delight. Do join us next week. Next week will be Tier 5 that we are looking at, and then it's the FA Cup the week after, and there are still lots of teams involved in that, so we will look forward to seeing you over the next 2 weeks. Join us of course on the Monday show, where it's always lots of things to talk about there, especially with the return of the WSL as well. So hopefully we'll see you Monday, but if not, we'll see you back here, Low League Lingo, Tier 5, next week, Wednesday evening. Be there or don't. See you later.